Pool as it's known by the city burghers, the Commie Pool as it's known by the socialists and progressives in this city. And I think you're in for another treat as we had that evening. The Scottish Socialist Party meetings since then will be to the SNP conference. We were at the SNP conference, was it last Friday or the Friday before? It seems, I can't remember, anyway, it was a Friday. And as you know, the SNP voted to change their policy over 30 years and decided that they wanted to be part of NATO. Well, I'm here to assure you that the Scottish Socialist Party is not about to do likewise. We are not. For us, NATO is a warmongering machine. Now, before I introduce both the speakers, I had a tie on earlier on, that's why I've got this white shirt on. I was today, and I bring you this news information hot foot, I was today at the Scottish Prison Officers Association conference in Peebles, at the Catriona Hotel to be exact. They had invited me down with other speakers to discuss the motion. The Scottish prison officers believe that their interests are best served by remaining part of the United Kingdom. Their conference of 100 delegates, they heard a Tory speaker, Lewis MacDonald for Labour, myself and Christine Graham for the SNP speak. The motion was then put to a vote, 100 prison officers, union delegates, and only one person voted for it. Only one person, one delegate at the Prison Officers Association Scotland conference today voted to agree with the motion that their interests are best served by remaining part of the United Kingdom. And before we think all the rest abstained, and you're premature in your applause, 3 people abstained, and all 95 others voted that Scotland's Prison Officers Association and Scotland's prison officers and their family, their interests were best served by an independent Scotland. And I think that's remarkable news. Now you get the applause, right? And I have to say, it was a terrific debate, it was a fantastic debate, and I think it'll be one of many that the trade union movement, the Length and Breadth of Scotland, are going to participate in the next 2 years. Let's hope they all vote that way in the next course of the next 2 years. So, anyway, without any further ado, hands up anybody who got a leaflet for this meeting. Right, so there's 5 or 6 people. You'll notice in the leaflet that the Scottish Socialist Party offered you Sandra Webster, John McAllion and Campbell Martin. And the eagle-eyed amongst you will know that's still Campbell Martin. Unfortunately, Campbell's been detained back in Ayrshire. He comes via Drossen. He's not been able to join us. But I can assure you that both Sandra and John are more than amply and well equipped to deliver an answer and to put the case that an independent Scotland will mean working people like yourself are better off, and that's the essential message the Scottish Socialist Party conveys and will convey again tonight. So I want to introduce you to both our speakers. First speaker I want to introduce you is, I said earlier on, I'm the joint national spokesperson, and this is the other joint, if I can put it that way. Sandra Webster is the joint national spokesperson of the Scottish Socialist Party, and I'm the other joint spokesperson, so we have 2 joints, always wise. And Sandra has been very heavily involved in the campaign to raise the idea that Scotland should not have nuclear weapons based in the Clyde and that we should not have NATO membership. That's the position of the Scottish Socialist Party, Trident Ploughshares, the Scottish Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and Sandra was heavily involved in the campaign. We failed in the end to persuade the SNP to do the right thing, but nonetheless, I was at the conference. Other people here were perhaps at the conference, and they know we might have lost the vote by 29 out of 800 delegates, but we won the argument resoundingly. And I want you to give a nice warm welcome to Sandra, who came all the way from Paisley to explain the issues around about it and why the Scottish Socialist Party steadfastly remains opposed to NATO's warmongering. So give a nice warm welcome.
So many people here tonight. Just so you know, we're actually not going to be talking tonight. We're going to be doing for apples.
Halloween, yeah.
So let's go in. It's so cold right in Glasgow, and as I always say to you when I first talk, my name's Sandra. I'm a mother, I'm a woman, I'm a socialist, I'm a Republican, and I'm a feminist. Not in that order. And that's why independent Scotland is so important to me. Tonight's Halloween, and John went to service from Dundee. And before trick or treat, there was guising, wasn't there? You know what I mean? And that's where I got up my meals. They don't go around trick or treating, they go guising, and they entertain people and put them on We have our views, we have our policies, and nothing else is going to change. And we're totally opposed, as Colin said, to no tomato. I've just forgotten about Perth. I couldn't make it, and as Colin and I are both involved in time pledge years no tomato. And I'm a very optimistic person. I believe in human beings, and I really thought we would win the vote. And when it didn't happen, I was gutted. So we believe that there should be no weapons of mass destruction in Scotland. Scotland should be nuclear free, and that message will never change, thankfully. I know a lot of my friends who are actually members of the SNP were gutted as well by the move. You probably know as well that with Urquhart and Bill Finney have chosen to move, and we applaud them. You know. Thank you very much. Gina Urquhart and Bill Finney have decided to leave, and I really applaud them for their stance, for doing that, such great people. It could have been a great opportunity for the SNP to make a difference and show how beautiful and independent Scotland could be. But as Sean and Colin say, they sailed into history and they broke, the beliefs of 30 years, and changed it. And it was just so shocking to me. It's historic and sad. Only by 29 votes. But the reaction, we've seen what's happened in the press with the SNP. It's one of their worst week. I remember at our first meeting that Colin and I went to about no tomato, a member from the SNP said, the SNP are used to being on the side of the angels, but now they're getting a bit of a reactionary and realising that people, are fighting against what they're doing. And my message as well is independence doesn't belong to one party. The SNP are supporting independence, but the SSP have always stood for independence for the last 40 years. We believe in the no name of Scotland, and we've been campaigning about this for the last 14 years. The reason why I'm so passionate about talking about independence is our birthright. It's not. It's like it's an opportunity. It could be a great opportunity to show what a beautiful Scotland could be, and it's been wasted, unfortunately. Then what happened after this happened? It was like actually an episode in the thick of it. Malcolm Tucker had been proud of Hammond going up to Lane last week and promising to invest £350 million in Lane. Like, I live in Paisley. There's just 5 minutes from where I live, there's lots of car park. When I look at that, I can see Lane, I can see Greenock, I can see all the little towns on the Clyde. All these heavy industries have been destroyed by the Tories. Why is Hammond so interested, in saying, this, according to him, there's going to be 6,500 jobs, but thanks to C&D, it actually shows only 500 civilian jobs that are part of Lane. And why are they so interested now in supporting this? An independent Scotland, why should we be, our main industry be defence? It's not actually defence, is it? It's about killing people, as Colin said, and waging war. Hammond also said, he thinks not, but we're not bothered about independence. He said it's not an issue, it's not going to happen. He said the plans we have now will take us well into the second half of the century. You can't see who will be threatening us in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Come on, comrades, who's going to come up to Scotland? The one I want at Edinburgh, why are we seeing such a threat? Why do we spend so much money on weapons of mass destruction? The message of Hammond as part of the government and the Better Together campaign, it's all negative, but I'm standing here because I'm so positive about independence. I want it every part of my being, and I think as people who are supporting that, we have to be positive too and let other people know that message. When I look at Westminster and all the policies that are happening there about welfare reform, the NHS is getting privatised. Can I just say, a couple of weeks ago I had a wee scare, and I was so well looked after by the NHS, and you don't really appreciate it until you know you need it. Well, the really is a jewel in the crown, isn't it? We're so lucky to have that in our country. And when you look at the Tories, there seems to be sort of intent on dismantling the welfare state, the whole system that we know it. And it's really frightening. And as I say, you don't really appreciate things until you lose them. And you really have to fight comrades to not lose these things. vision of independent Scotland is an absolutely beautiful one. We keep saying that, you know, we should be proud of it. We want to have a kinder, fairer society where all people can take their place, where there's jobs for people, where there's opportunities, and not dependent on their family's background and where they were brought up. Equal. And people who can pay will pay. We're looking for a protection of public services. Colin was talking today, he spoke at the prison officers things. So we are totally opposed to the cuts that are happening, to public services. We support a living wage, and as I say, we all want to make us a kinder, fairer society. I'm a proud SSP member. For a long time I sat on the fence with a community activist and I thought, I don't want to get involved in one party. But when I looked at all the cuts that were happening, I thought the only party that I could join and make a difference would be the SSP. And I know there's never going to be a U-turn in our policies about supporting people, and especially with NATO. So the SSP has, I think we've got on the right foot. We're starting the debate now. And we're proud to see that things are going to be different after independence. You hear Alex Salmond and the SNP saying, don't worry, things are just going to be the same. But I think our vision of the independent Scotland is a truly beautiful one. And we should be ashamed to let people know that, yeah, it's going to be different, it's going to be radical, and it's going to be good. So why will people vote for independence? I think people will vote, not for screaming on things, but because they want things to be different, they want to change. And it's our job, it's, to encourage people and let them know that that's what we're going to do. A few weeks ago, I was at the Carers Parliament, and it was a day where unpaid carers from all over Scotland came together to talk about issues related to carers. You probably know, I'm a carer, my two sons have autism. I get £44 a week. Carers allowance to look after them, and everybody 24/7 high quality care. And it was great. There were so many other colleagues, carer colleagues in Edinburgh talking about all the issues that are affecting them. One of the workshops I went to was about benefits, and income. And the civil servants who were taking it, this is terrible, people said 100,000 people are going to lose their homes probably with the bedroom tax. There's going to cut some benefits and DLA and affected people to cut some civil service. And they all just brought on their hands and said, well, we can't do anything, it's a Westminster problem. Well, we can't wait till independence to do that. We'll have to support people where they are now. We'll have to work for everybody. And that's why I'm mental health, we remember the SSP, because we have concern for the most vulnerable people in our society. And it's a beautiful caring society, and I believe that people of Scotland do care about each other and look after each other. Do we want to have a nation where, we're all, and I remember getting Brown in the lead up to the Tory Party conference talking about, it's terrible, these people, going out, hard-working people going out to work, and they're looking at their neighbours across the road with their blinds shut because they're not working. Why do people have their blinds shut? I don't think it's because they're lying in a bed, it's because they want to keep the world out, And so we have to try and defeat this divide and conquer for them all. So that's my vision, and that's the vision of the SSP as well. We're always democratic, and we're always going to be reflective of people's needs. And I promise that we'll never stray away from the people of represent. Thanks very much for listening to the comments.
Here for the Scottish Socialist Party. Any chance you can give me a ticket for this SNP conference? And they phoned me back and say, no, wait, all you need. So I texted Angus Robertson, who got me involved in the Yes Scotland campaign, and says, any chance of getting me a ticket for the Friday debate? Aye, no bother, just pick it up at reception. So I went up there, we were there with the tried and plowshares people, a couple of 100 days lobbying, and all the journalists were saying, you'll never get in the debate. And the room only holds 800, and the lobby in there, and there'll be no room for anybody else. So I wasn't born yesterday, I'm from Motherwell. So half an hour before it was due to start, I went in and I sat at the very back on my own, and waited until it filled up. And throughout the whole debate, the chairman kept saying, look, I hope this room's just for delegates. Hope everybody here kens this is just a meeting for delegates. And I just sat there, trying to look inconspicuous. Anyway, for the next 2 hours, it was an absolutely fabulous debate, I have to say that. It was a terrific debate, it was passionate, there was red herrings, there was threats, there was even facts and figures that were accurate in the debate, and it was really good. If anybody's interested in politics, maybe it was on the telly, I don't know, I was in the hall, but it was a terrific place to be and to see it. And like every fantastic debate, it was a cliffhanger, but at the end, as Sandra said, the motion to remain out of NATO was defeated by 29 votes. And Monday, as you know, Tuesday, when I was up at the Prison Officers Association offices just near Salton Prison, talking to miday's conference, the guy showed me in his iPad that John Finney from the SNP had resigned, and Jean Urquhart. So when I get home, I phoned him and I says, do you fancy coming to speak at a meeting in the Calton Centre next Wednesday night and that? And John Finney, fair play to the guy, he said to me on the phone, he says, look, it's common knowledge I'm a big fan of the SSP. And I was like, oh, that's really nice, but no, it's no knowledge to me. I didn't know it, right? And I says, would you like to come? He says, look, I have to be honest, he says, I don't want my comrades and my friends and my colleagues in the SNP to think this was premeditated, that it's all about leaving the SNP to join the SSP. That's not what this is about, it's about the principle of NATO. And he says, if you leave me 2 weeks, then I'm happy to speak at meetings on independence with the Scottish Socialist Party, length and breadth of the country. And Jean Urquhart said the same. My message to them, as I put it to you, is they're welcome. They're more than welcome, because this is a movement for independence. It isn't the Scottish Socialist Party's movement or campaign. It doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to the SNP or the Greens. It belongs to us all. And the Scottish Socialist Party is proud, as Sandra has mentioned. We, the Scottish Socialist Party, the Greens and the SNP, founded the Scottish Independence Convention way back in 2005. And that is, if you like, the mother of what is now the Yes Scotland campaign. The SSP is proud to be part of it. We've got colleagues and friends as part of that movement. Yes, they're not all socialists. We're perhaps the left of the movement. There are others that are on the right, there's others in the centre. But our main focus is to say we jointly have a case which is to defeat the better together. The other side's case is wrong, is unattractive, does nothing, offers nothing to working people except more recessions, more wars, more fuel poverty, more child poverty, less opportunity to determine our own future. And that's a powerful case, and we do that hand in hand with our colleagues in the SNP, the Greens, and people, of course, from no party. So I want to move on and introduce the second of our two speakers. And before I do that, I should just say, after John has spoken, it's your opportunity to speak. So this is about engagement. You've got a chance to ask your questions, make your point of view. We've got plenty of time. We've got this meeting as long as we want it. I've been given the keys. We'll stay here all night if we want, right? So we won't. We'll be finished for 9:30. But so that's to let you know that you'll get your chance in a second. You'll be with us. So the second of our speakers is someone who you have probably heard about before. John McAllion is a former Labour MSP. He's a former Labour MP. And it's safe to say he's one of those figures across the board. All the political parties see in John McAllion a man of principle, somebody that stood his ground. John McAllion was a Labour MP and a Labour MSP who joined the SSP when its fortunes, safe to say, were on the way down. He didn't join the SSP for a career. He joined the SSP because he's a man of principle who supports an independent socialist Scotland. And it's his job this evening to convey to you the message that working people like us have a world to gain from independence. We will be better off. That's essentially the message we want to put in front of you. So I hope you give a nice warm welcome for John McAllion.
It's very hard to imagine Colin being successful and inconspicuous at any kind of conference, and even in the best possible way. We're now about 2 or 3 weeks into a 2-year campaign, which will end with the Scottish people being asked to make what is arguably the most important democratic decision that any people have ever been asked to make in this country. And already, in these 2 or 3 weeks of the campaign, the big 4 main political parties in Scotland are doing what they do best, and that is political name-calling, political mudslinging and fear-mongering across the country. Alex Salmond, we've been told by one side at the moment, is a liar. He doesn't deserve the trust of the Scottish people. The SNP are telling us that the unionist leadership in Scotland are hypocrites who have never stood lower in the esteem of the Scottish people than they do at the present day. Alex Salmond then stands accused by the unionist side of putting back the referendum date until the end of 2014 so that he can get the benefit of the 700th anniversary of the Battle of Bannockburn. and so as you can time it to coincide with the end of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, where it's assumed Scottish success will boost the Braveheart factor and help to deliver a yes majority vote. Back come the SNP and say the unionist side are wasting £50 million by holding a celebration in 2014 to commemorate the outbreak of the First World War, a war which is now generally regarded as a European descent into barbarism, but is seen in the unionist camp as representing everything that's best about being British. And then on Monday, the millionaire Surrey-based Defence Secretary suddenly pops up at Faslane and tries to sell us the idea that the billions will be spent on Trident are really a job creation programme for the lucky few who happen to live in and around the Faslane area. And then he warns us that unless we're prepared to commit between 80 and £100 billion to the renewal of Trident, if we don't do that within the next 5, 10, 15 years, then 50 years from now we'll be overcome by an enemy. Who the enemy is, he doesn't know. Whether the enemy exists in 40 or 50 years' time, he doesn't know either. But we better spend the money now, just in case, is his argument. Then yesterday, we had the first big set-piece debate in the Scottish Parliament. Not on the big issues that surround the question of independence, but on the finer points of the Ministerial Code of Conduct and whether or not Alex Salmon and Nicola Sturgeon were out of order and going to court to try to protect whether or not they receive legal advice from the European Union. I mean, it's a joke, the debate so far, at the level of the big stream parties. And I think what it tells us is that we cannot leave the debate to them. Because if we leave the debate to the big parties, there's not going to be a debate. And this referendum will fail because people won't be bothered to turn out and vote in it because they won't be interested in it. And therefore, we've got to have a debate outside the big main parties who dominate the media and dominate the press and try to get the people of Scotland engaged with this important decision which they're going to have to be made. And one of the first things I think we have to do is to be clear in our own minds about the kind of country that Scotland is today and about who the Scottish people are who constitute the nation of Scotland today. Because they're not only a nation that has many different cultures and ethnicities and belief systems, we're a nation that's proud of that diversity. And in fact, I thought William McAllion, the author, got it absolutely right when a few years ago he described us as a mongrel nation. We are a mongrel nation and proud to be a mongrel nation. Even our own family. My daughter-in-law was born in Laos. She grew up and was educated in Thailand. She's now a UK citizen living in Glasgow. My wife and mother-in-law were born and raised in England, now living in Scotland. 8% of the population are like me, and 3% of the Scottish population are like my daughter-in-law. I myself, part of the main white majority population in Scotland, am not, as it seems, pure Scottish. I still identify with my Irish grandparents, my Irish great-grandparents who first came across this country in the late 19th and early 20th century. And like them, a part of me will always be Irish. But I'm also Scottish and proud to be Scottish. But I'm also part of the baby boomer generation who had the great fortune of being born into a post-war British state, which at that time was blessed with a national health service, a welfare state, and free education all the way to university. It was something to be proud of. Everything about British heritage isn't bad, and we have to remember that. I'm also a European. Any European doesn't want to see the wars that destroyed that continent in the 20th century being repeated in the 21st century. So we are not one type, one ethnic type in this country. And any appeal to this mongrel nation, which is based upon a very narrow definition of Scottish nationalism, is bound to fail. Because the plain fact is that the majority of the people who will vote in 2014 in this referendum don't see themselves as Scottish nationalists and don't fit into the category of Scottish nationalists. So if we want them to vote yes in that referendum campaign, then we're going to have to give them reasons for voting yes. We're going to have to convince them that it's in their interest to vote yes, that independence will actually be good for them and their families. Because independent statehood on its own is not a sufficient reason to expect a majority to vote yes in 2014. If independence is going to be worth a candle to the majority of voters in 2014, then it has to have the potential to change Scotland from the kind of country it currently is into the kind of country that it can yet become. And that's why, like Sandra, I'm absolutely puzzled by the SNP's current strategy of trying to present a yes vote as voting for no very much change at all. If nothing much is really changed because we vote yes, then why bother to vote yes in the first place in any case. For example, why vote yes to stay in NATO and to remain part of a global warfighting machine that's led by the United States of America? Vote no and you get exactly the same thing as that. So why bother? Vote yes in that case. Why vote yes to keep the Queen and to remain subjects rather than citizens in their own country? I know the SNP say that they'll write a new constitution for Scotland where the people will be sovereign, but how can the people be sovereign if they have a sovereign reigning over them? It doesn't make any kind of sense. And what happened to the old lines? We'll make this land republican when the Scottish break away. There's thousands, millions of Scots out there who are waiting for that kind of message to come across as part of this independence campaign, but they're not hearing it. At least they're not hearing it from the mainstream parties. And why vote yes to keep the pound? And to keep an unelected Bank of England setting our interest rates, defining what our monetary policy should be? Vote no and you get exactly the same thing in any case. And why vote yes to keep British anti-trade union laws that are the worst in the whole of Europe? Why vote yes for an economic development model that's actually based on low taxes, deregulation, privatisation as a means of sucking in foreign inward investment and boosting economic growth in the country? We already have that through being Britain and through being part of the European Union. So these are not reasons for voting yes, and why the SNP should be trying to get people to vote yes on those grounds utterly nonpluses me. Because NATO membership, the pound, the monarchy, neoliberal economics, all of that is only part of the status quo deal. If you go for that part of the status quo deal, the other parts of the status quo deal come along with it, and the kind of things that Scotland's already suffering from, because it's part of Britain, because it's part of the European Union, because it's part of the neoliberal consensus that invades Britain and the European Union. That means mass unemployment. Almost a quarter of our workforce are on the dole and claiming benefit. Many more than that are what they call economically inactive, but not appearing on the available to work register. We have drug problems with drug misuse that are appalling. More than 500 of our fellow citizens died last year because of the misuse of drugs. Alcohol was even worse. Nearly 1,300 died from alcoholic misuse last year. We've got a suicide rate amongst young males which has been consistently ahead of England and Wales for a decade. That's the kind of thing that's happening here and now. A fifth of our children still live in poverty, despite their promises to abolish child poverty. A fifth of our children live in poverty. A quarter of pensioner households in poverty. Nearly 1 million of our households are officially categorised as low income. More than 500,000 of our workers paid less than a living wage. A third of our households fuel poor. We have got amongst the worst life expectancy rates of any countries in Europe. The only countries worse than us in Europe are Hungary, Bulgaria and Slovenia. Now, if nothing political is going to change when you vote yes in 2 years' time, none of that will change either. That's the hard reality. And we've got to convince people that you vote for independence, not to keep things the way they are, but to change things, to make things better, to make a better life for people in this country. And I don't hear that coming out of the big parties who are meant to be on our side in this yes campaign. You just don't hear that kind of argument at all. And I don't see how returning a limited form of sovereignty to the Scottish people so that they can then carry on as they've been carrying on up to now makes any sense at all. Take, for example, this is something which I've been involved in through the pensioners' forums at very different levels in Scotland. There's now a consensus amongst the big political parties in Scotland about the Scottish Government's new policy, which is called Reshaping Care for Older People in Scotland. It's a very complicated policy, no time to get into it tonight. But in brief, essentially it's a policy that says because our population is ageing and because public spending is being cut and will continue to be cut in this country for the next 5 to 10 years, that we can no longer afford to provide the current levels of health and social care to older people in Scotland. There's going to be a lot more older people in the future than there are now. Those older people who are going to be around in the future are going to have health and social care needs which are more complex, more chronic, more serious, more demanding, and at the same time, central and local government in Scotland is going to have less money to spend on meeting those health care needs. So what's the solution? The solution that all the four main political parties say is to make the money we have at present go a wee bit further, make it do more than it's doing at the moment. And what that means is that what they term the expensive forms of care for older people, like NHS beds, like local authority or voluntary sector residential homes or nursing homes, that kind of care, we're pulling the money out of that. Costs too much per head. And we're putting the money into cheaper forms of care in the community, which will be delivered in the main by the private and voluntary sector. I was at a meeting in Dundee last week where a senior figure in the social work department of the city admitted that 2/3 of their social work care budget wasn't spent in-house. It was already been spent in the private sector and the voluntary sector. And she said that that proportion was going to get greater in the future, that the money councils were spending in this care was not going to public care through the statutory sector, we're going to the voluntary sector, we're going to the private sector. And the reason for that is as plain as your nose why that's happening. And that is because in the statutory sector, in the councils, in the NHS, the unions tend to be strong. The wages are better, the conditions are better, the pensions are better. But in the voluntary and the private sector, the unions aren't so strong, so you can get the same people, well not the same people, well, sometimes it won't be the same people, delivering the same care, but getting paid less, treatment less pensions and so on, and in that way they can make the money stretch that little bit further. And as part of the pensions reform, the Scottish pensions reform, we went to meet all the political parties of Holyrood, Liberals, Labour, Tories, SNP, they all said the same. Like Mrs Thatcher in the 1980s, there is no alternative. There's nothing else to be done, we're all going to go through with this. But there is an alternative, that's the problem. There is an alternative. The biggest pensioner organisation in this island is the National Pensioners Convention. And they've been arguing for years that what they want to see done is to have a health and social care system in this country that mirrors the old National Health Service, that's funded from general taxation, that's free at the point of use, that doesn't have all the means test that goes along with the present system, and that it should be delivered as a matter of principle to older people in this country. Nobody's listening to them. And the political elites in Westminster and Holyrood, not an ear is turned to them, not an ear listens to what they're saying. They simply dismiss it. It can't be done. We can't afford it. We haven't got the money. And I think that's an absolute disgrace. And because there always has been an alternative to this rigid neoliberalism which dominates Britain and in the European Union. Now, you try to tell the politicians that they can go down a different road. They say, look across Europe, nobody's doing that. Everybody's doing what we're doing. But what about Norway? Look at Norway. Now, Norway's in NATO, and I don't want us to end with Norway just by joining NATO. But Norway is currently the top country in the world in the United Nations Human Development Index. It's got life expectancy rates, literacy levels, and living standards that are the envy of the rest of the world. Far better than Britain, far better than America, far better than all the countries of the European Union. And Norway is not in the European Union. Norway doesn't use the euro, it's got its own currency. Norway is a member of the European Economic Area, the World Trade Organisation, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, but it follows a very different development model from Europe and from Britain. Its model involves higher taxes, which are then substantially invested in the infrastructure of the country, or in a universally available welfare state that's available to all of their citizens. Why can't we follow the model of Norway rather than follow the neoliberal model, which all the big political parties in this country are telling us that we have to do? Now, I'm not an economist. I get as confused as the next person when I hear economists talking on television. But even I can see that we need a debate over these next 2 years about Scotland's economic future, which goes wider than saying that the only alternative is to stay with the pound or go into Europe. We need to explore much different options from that to see if that's possible and use this debate to make the arguments about it. We also need to challenge this neoliberal consensus. Why should we accept, like all the big parties do, this neoliberal consensus which is based around, lowering costs, encouraging the private sector, reducing the public sector, and so on. And why is there no focus in this debate on the benefits of public ownership? I mean, if the condemned coalition and its Labour opposition in Westminster can't run a privatised railway, why don't we take that railway back into public ownership? Why aren't people making that kind of argument? The big 6 energy companies continue to rip off consumers and to put older people at risk of dying every winter. Then why don't we nationalise them? Why don't you say bring them back in like they used to be and deliver them for the benefit of the people and not for the benefit of the profits of a few people who actually belong to it. And, you know, above all else, if they're saying that we can't afford a welfare state and universal benefits, then why don't we ask in this debate, why is it that after the United States of America and China, we are the third highest military spender in the world? The third highest military spender in the world. How can we justify that at the same time we're dismantling the welfare state? How can we say, like we did just last week, that we can no longer afford to give child benefit to families bigger than two because it will save £200 million a year? When this man came up to Faslane this week, he announced he's spending £350 million preparing for a system that might not even go ahead anyway. The whole thing is absolutely crazy. And it's time that we actually got this debate about independence round to these kind of issues and to focus on these issues. Not just because I think if we do that we'll win, because I also think it will engage people with this campaign and they'll begin to understand it. You know, the Billy Graham from Mara in Dundee this week, the great folk singer, and there was a line from one of Michael Mara's songs that always stuck with me. Where is the anger that made us wise? He said. And that used to be the case in this country, that people were genuinely angry about the attacks that have been made in our public sector and our public services, and would fight back about it. That we've got to use this campaign to actually get that anger back and to make an assault on it through the arguments of independence, because this is a debate that matters. It affects every single one of us, and it will largely determine who and what we are, at least for the next generation, and possibly for longer than that. As somebody once said in one of the Sunday newspapers, I think it was 2 weeks ago, this is the biggest political fight in this country, meaning Britain, since the Irish War of Independence. It's really that important. And we cannot let that opportunity slip by allowing the political elites in Westminster and Holyrood to dominate this debate and draw what the terms of this debate is. It's much more important than that, because this isn't Alex Salmond or the SNP's debate. This isn't the Scottish Parliament's or the Westminster Parliament's debate. It's not the print and broadcast media's debate, it's our debate. We need to engage with this debate, we need to make the arguments, and we need to make sure that at least when we get to 2014, we've explored every issue that matters to us and matters to ordinary people around this country, and that's how the debate is concluded. And then we might come to the right decision if we do that. Thanks very much.
Very much for that, John McAllion. We've got it. This is our debate. Get a t-shirt made tomorrow, right? John McAllion quote. Two things I want to say before I open it up to the floor. First thing is, the last time Sandra and John Campbell Martin came to Edinburgh to speak at a meeting, we put it on this wee camera, you know, the red one there, and we posted it on YouTube. And in the couple of weeks since you've been here, more than 500 people have watched it. Terrific. There's no Gangnam Style, because they've had about 500 million, right? But it shows there's more people than just watching it here who'll get to see this, right? So that's terrific. Now, in time-honoured fashion, the socialist movements go back a long time. This is your opportunity to ask your questions and raise your concerns and issues you want to do. Before we do that, though, there's two things I want to do in the chair. First of all, you'll notice these tins. I want to pass them around. John McAllion, you know, he comes from an Irish Catholic background, so did I. You go to chapel, you put it in the plate, right? So consider these the plate. Let me hand one there and one there. Pass it round and fill it in, and we can pay for this all hopefully at the end of it. Otherwise, you have to stay here and squat. Anyway, the other thing is going to say, if in the course of tonight you're interested in finding out more details about the Scottish Socialist Party, you want to join, etc., then you can sign up here and when you pass this round. Put your name and contact details on it, right? And we'll be back to you after tonight, okay? Okay, last call for a question.
Can I answer that last question? The facts of the two referendums in Canada. Canada has a very similar turnout in general elections and local elections to what Scotland and the UK has, 50–60%. But in the two referendums that they have had, that turnout in the first one jumped to 93%. The people were motivated. Yes, there are a lot of people in this country that are apathetic, they are annoyed by us politicians picking each other. But in the two referendums, certainly the first one, it went up from usual turnout of 50 odd to 93%. And I would like to think that the Yes Scotland campaign of all the political parties and none will motivate those generally disenfranchise people who don't want to vote, but to turn out and vote for a positive message. It's difficult to get people motivated to turn out for a negative message, but hopefully they will turn out in greater numbers in 2014.
Brilliant, smashing. Okay, so let's reply to all those questions.
I'm not sure if Stephen quite answered one of his questions, because I think part of it was maybe about what methods have you used. Presumably social media or
Definitely. So Stephen, can I quote you then? You said that Alex Salmond, do you love or hate him? Is he a man-like politician then, do you think? Can I quote you on that one?
I've used that 1,000 times in the doorstep.
That would be the original as well. But you're right, and it's about how to engage young people in the millions who are not going to vote. I think you're totally right, social networking and things are so important, Twitter, Facebook, and I think it's about being positive as well. And I think just the very fact that we're all here on a Friday night in Halloween, we're all political people. I know. Sorry, it's been a long week.
Just let you know, I know what it is.
It feels like Friday night to me, I can assure you. But you're right, we have to get the message out to people decided. We have to talk to all our neighbours, people in our communities, and use everything to try and get people, and that's why we have to be passionate and positive about it. And not just forget that we're not all about contemplating a Labour on our politics. We have to get out to those millions of people who are not engaged at the moment. So, but I have to admit that, my daughter's 16, 18 actually, but she's got lots of friends who are younger, and they are also impassioned, about politics and independence. So I'm pretty positive, about young people as well. And what you mentioned about, Stuart, about, fear, uncertainty and doubt, it's going back to same philosophy, isn't it? And that's, of course, we're going to use those things to try and change things, but we have to be positive, and spread it and be happy and show people how positive and things can be. So that's going to be my policy anyway up to then. So thank you. I think we're going to say as well, but Cathy mentioned about taxing the rich. The rich will always hold on to their capital. That's what they do.
Well, he really said he squeezed the pips out of them, and he did better because in 1979...
The reason I'm a member of the Scottish Socialist Party is because I hate the capitalist state. I hate the capitalist state. Poor people, even when people on benefits, give everything they are given back to the local community, all the money, and that's the kind of society I want, a fairer one. We can all be represented, and that's, share what we have, and be good to each other.
Thanks very much. Now listen, hold on,
I actually work for Greenpeace next week. Got a lot of people doing my job. We've done a lot of students so that you're focusing on colleges and universities and expressing the idea of an independent Scotland, eradicating poverty, eradicating things like capitalism. Like, people are for this because they want the future as well, and there's no future for capitalism. There's just competition. Don't want that. I think reinvesting stuff back into housing. 10,000 homeless families in Scotland, but we spend things like money on trams and Parliament buildings that aren't really that important. You want to build the economy from the start with foundations, or give people houses so they can apply for jobs. And because you can't get a job without a home, right? So start from the root first already. We promote that idea to young people through colleges and universities.
Okay, and the women here want to speak.
I'm also in the SNP, just so Steph doesn't feel that it's own. I went on this, they have this ambassador programme as part of the Yes thing, so I had the training in June, and out of it, I think you just use every chance to speak to the person beside you at the bus, the person at the bus stop, when you're buying your paper, and all I say is, well, you're thinking about the referendum, and almost everybody engages in a conversation with me. And they're not all for it, but it gives you an opportunity to then say, well, what are the things that would worry you about being independent? And so if there's a third of Scotland already know they're going to vote yes, then the other third, you just have to get double that number. We just have one each to convert, if you like. So I think we should be optimistic. But you don't have to make a big deal of it. Just everybody you meet. My rule is I have to ask somebody once a day, and I have no problem doing it because I'm out and about every day. And you can just do it. You don't have to wait for a big meeting, chap on doors, although we'll probably do that as well. Just speak to everybody that you meet about it. And there's great interest. I've never had anybody say, oh, buzz off, you know, or anything to me.
Can I say, I think this is the first time I've ever had an ambassador, an SSP. More than welcome to be here. I'm sure your message is that they don't ask the same person every single day.
No, actually I met somebody when I was buying my paper in Tesco one morning, and it was a bad headline, and the man said, he opened the conversation, oh, I'm fed up with this. And I said, well, that's why I'm going for an independent Scotland, you see. He said, only I'm Labour, I'm a life here. And I said, it's nothing to do with it. If you think about being Labour, it's what's best for you and what's best for Scotland, your grandchildren. And he went away saying, oh, well. So I said, well, next time I bump into you, I'll ask you again if you're going to vote for independence. And I think just these little incidents, he's probably went home and told his wife, this woman nipped his ear. And so it has a snowball effect.
Fantastic. Great. So, John, I had even more questions between Sandra finishing and you starting, so feel free,
I'm not sure if that's relevant. Michael's thinking about tax, I don't have any problem with that whatsoever.
Well, I'm a no campaigner and I don't believe in independence. I think it'll be bad for us.
Well, anyway, but I think what we live in a society where tax has become a dirty word. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in the 1950s in Glasgow. My mother was a home help, my father was a labourer at Robinson's. And they didn't earn very much money, but paying basically the bank tax at 33 pence a pound. And nobody said a word. Because we're getting the National Health Service for the first time in our lives, the families' lives, we're getting free education. And we're getting, you know, all the things of welfare state that never existed before. People could see a connection between tax and the good things in life that we seem to have lost track of it. And somehow we've got to find our way back to that kind of thinking, to make people think that tax isn't a bad thing. The Americans started this by using words, loaded words, about tax relief and all this kind of thing, as if tax was a burden placed upon people. Tax is what makes societies tick. It's a good thing, and we've got to find a way back into persuading people that that's the case. And the easiest way to start with is taxing the rich, because most people are not rich, they're quite happy to see other people taxed before themselves. But I also don't think that that there's any need to fear a one-party state. I'm not convinced even that the SNP will be the biggest beneficiaries of an independent Scotland. I'm not convinced that a Scottish Labour Party that was rooted in the trade union movement and was free of London and free of England would not be the biggest beneficiaries of an independent Scotland. They can't see it themselves, but I'm not convinced that they will be the biggest party in Scotland after independence. And in any case, I also don't think that, I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say. I kind of lost the point I was going to make.
Do you want to answer the question the lady asked about how you listen to Calton and you get 16 or 17?
Well, you talk to them, I mean, you give them ideas about here. I'm a member of the General Municipal Boilermakers Union. I've never seen a boilermaker in my life, but I'm a member of the GMB. When I joined the SSP and this campaign started, the GMB phoned me up and said, will you come and make the case for independence at the GMB? I said, yeah, sure. And I walked along, and it was a trap. They packed the meeting full of their MPs, their MSPs, all Labour Party activists and supporters there just to give me a hammer, basically. And at the end of it, I got a hammer for most of the week, but at the end of it, a number of them walked up and said, we'd never heard the arguments before. Thanks. It's making us any different, because they just haven't heard the arguments. They don't know what the arguments are. All they hear is the propaganda from one side, which they say, I voted Labour, I listen to what Labour MPs tell me. I don't listen to anybody else. But I think in this campaign we've got an opportunity to get across to people who don't normally hear these arguments and do it. I don't know if it's social media, you know, I'm not the best place to talk to young people. Remember when I first got elected as an MSP, I was 50. And Donald Dewar didn't know quite what to do with me. I was one of the few MPs who was in the first parliamentary Labour group in Holyrood. So he made me the youth spokesperson at the age of 50. And then didn't let me speak at any of the conferences. I was standing in the conference with my hand up and speaking to the youth debate, they wouldn't even call me. It was just a title. But young people will listen. And what the National Pensions Convention are doing, for example, they hold a big demonstration every autumn in London at the Westminster Parliament. And this year they're doing it across the age divide. They're doing it with all the young people's organisations, the Pensions Convention are coming together, and they're planning a joint demonstration. what they listen to each other, what the problems of each group is, and try to work together, because it's the same problem at the end of the day. And I think that's how you actually get to young people. Young people have been treated differently from the other groups of society. They've been treated worse in many respects. But the same bad things are happening to other age groups as well. The last thing that we need to let to happen is for an age gap to open up. You know, where older people don't like younger people blame older people for the problems they've got. We can't allow that to happen. It's a class issue. And it's right across the whole age group that the same things are happening. Well, the only way we can defeat it is by coming together as one. And the final point I'll make is this. It's no our place to worry about Tory governments getting elected and the rest of the UK and Scotland becomes independent. Scotland's got 5 million people. The rest of the UK has got 60 million. They can't hold us responsible if they elect a Tory government after we've gone. What they could do after we've gone is adopt a proportional representation system of election, and they'll never have a Tory government in the rest of the UK again, just as we'll never have a Tory government in independent Scotland again. It's as simple as that. What's happening at the moment is that Labour and the Tories are hand in glove with each other. They've got a monopoly on political power in the Parliament under the first past postal system, which guarantees if it's not the Tories, it's Labour, if it's not Labour, it's the Tories. And they like it, and they don't want to change it. When it's time to level down south, we're going to have to change it, because we've had it up to here. We've had election after election where we voted the Tories out of power and get Tory government stuffed down our throats. It's time to say, no more. We decide for ourselves who we're governed. We're not dependent on other people telling us who will reign over us and govern us in this country. So it's very simple. It's for the good of everybody if Scotland goes independent, and especially for the workers down there, because then they may get up off their knees and start to do things to make sure they never get a Tory government themselves, just like they do in Scotland as well. So let's hope we can all look forward to a much, much fairer, a much more equal and a much better society to live in, not just in Scotland, but right across the whole of these islands. And that's the prize that we should all try to fight for in this election. So thanks.
Listen, I want to thank Sandra Webster and John McAllion on your behalf for the meeting. I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a terrific meeting. As I said, it will be on YouTube in a couple of days. Just a couple of things before you rush off. First of all is, do keep in touch. This has been the second meeting. We had one a month ago. We'll be having another one fairly soon, so make sure if you want to know about the details, you sign up. On the sheet went round, keep in touch with the website, etc. If you're able to come along tomorrow night to Drummond High School at 7 o'clock for the Yes Scotland inaugural meeting, then do come along. It's important there's as many people there as you possibly can. The more people turn up, then the more we can do, the more we can talk about, more activities we can carry out. And the last thing I was going to say, if you want to keep in touch with the Scottish Socialist Party, we have a website. If you want to know more about it, we have a voice material at the back. And as I say to people, if you want to meet us in our office, which is the Horse at the east end of Princess Street, we're there every Wednesday, Thursday and Friday between 12 and 2. Thanks very much. Enjoy yourself.